everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. So in preparation for the talk today, I actually came up with an activity for everyone in the audience. So what I would like for everyone to go ahead and do is turn to the person next to you and ask the person the following question, and then I want you to have a very thoughtful discussion about this, okay? So go ahead and turn to the person next to you, and I want you to ask this question. So I hope you guys establish a lot of evening plans tonight. But for anyone who hasn't been on a date recently and just went through Valentine's Day, I wanted to remind everyone sort of how awkward those dates can really be. And so in preparing for this presentation, I was really inspired by Valentine's Day. How can we prolong this agony for everyone? So let's make a talk that's centered about love, all right? So as Russell mentioned, I am a design researcher at Artefact, and my main job is to really help people and teams gain empathy, and then help design teams take action based on that empathy we've collectively created. At Artefact, I get to work on a lot of different types of projects. Our work ranges from healthcare to education to virtual reality. And what really unites all of them is that we focus on two questions at the beginning. First, who are our users? And then secondly, what are the problems that they face? And we believe that solving our users' problems are the most effective way to quickly get to innovation and really creating things that people love. So as part of my job as a design researcher, I get to talk to a lot of people, I watch them do their jobs, I figure out what makes you tick, what do you do, and what really motivates you. And about a year ago, I realized, I would go home from my day job, and then at night, I was doing really similar things on dates. So I would go ask people, what do you do? What really makes you tick? You can see me here. I'm the one wearing the blazer. After thinking and going on all these dates, I realized I'm actually just being a design researcher in all aspects of my life. And this made me question, are there actually deeper similarities between design research and online dating? And I came to this main conclusion, which both activities are fundamentally about helping people gain empathy and then finding love. So we'll go through that today, but within sort of a dating context, obviously you find love within a relationship, hopefully, and with the products and services, creating things that people enjoy using and really help them and impact their lives. So how are both online dating and design research impacted by our culture and our society? If you think about big trends that are occurring, one of them is that technology and data are increasing exponentially. A study conducted by IBM found that 90% of the world's data was generated in the past 2 years. So the rate at which we have different information sources and ways of using data is changing rapidly. And I think online dating has done a fantastic job of really taking advantage of this. If you look at the explosion of online sites that have occurred across time, you have sites like OkCupid, which allow you to find people who are compatible with dating based on algorithms. You have apps like Tinder, which pair you based on location. You have other sites that unite people from different cultural backgrounds, like gluten-free singles, as well as See Captain Date. And so I think that online dating has become really widely adopted. Around 58% of college graduates now know someone who met someone in a significant relationship online. So it's become pretty widespread. Another thing that I've learned from studying psychology is that people usually don't behave in the way that they think or say they will. So if you think about this within a dating context, I'm sure a lot of us can think about dates where we've gone, and at the end of the date, someone might say, oh, it's really nice, this is so much fun, let's hang out again. And then when you text them to follow up, what happens? You wait for like an hour, and then 5 hours, and then 10 hours, and then you never hear from them again. So there's a mismatch between what people say and what people do sometimes. Well, in research, unfortunately, we deal with the same situation. So an airline actually conducted a study asking their users about food preferences. Hey, would you like really healthful foods like fruits and celery sticks on your flights to be healthy and live great lives? And the passengers overwhelmingly actually said, yes, we would like to have these wonderful food options. Then the airline actually implemented this and put the healthy snacks on the airlines, and what did people choose? They chose the salty, fatty, and sweet snacks. So once again, we see in both design research and online dating, we have this mismatch between what people say and what they actually do. So as our job, we have to really infer, based on observation and piecing together a lot of clues, how people will actually act. So that's one of the many lessons that I think we learn from online dating. But I feel like as design research continues to scale and adapt to the digital age, there are many other lessons that we can learn from design, from online dating. And so today I'm gonna walk you through 3 of them. The first is action at first data. So, if you think about the process of creating an online account, a lot of times you'll answer match questions about yourself, and then OkCupid will do a great job of pairing you with quality suitors. So here you see number 1 believer in you, interesting appearance, but you seem to have high match compatibility, so you just decide to delve further into his profile. All right, let's take a closer look. All right, so his name is actually Justin, okay. Is he actually a real person? So then, of course, you need to stalk him online. So there seems to be an article written about him. Okay, maybe he's a real person. He seems to take a lot of pictures of himself. Maybe he's like vain, but he has abs, so like maybe we'll deal with it. And then he has an Instagram account, so he's probably not a stalker, hopefully. And from there, okay, so I've assessed the data I have about him, both qualitative and quantitative. Now let's actually try communicating with him and see how this goes. So you initiate a text conversation with Justin, and you can see, well, he doesn't really use punctuation like periods, but he writes partial sentences and capitalizes things sometimes. So maybe he's worth a date. So let's go ahead and try hanging out with him. And then you hang out with him and it's terrible. And so, as a result, you decide for your recommendation for yourself in the future to take an action by not hanging out with him again. All right, so within design research, how can we gain inspiration from gathering data from multiple sources, both qualitative and quantitative, to really inform and drive our product decisions? I think there are a lot of web analytics tools out there, like Google Analytics, that help you track information at a quantitative level, looking at usage patterns, and perhaps your website doesn't have any page views here. What it does is actually allow you now to have qualitative surveys as well, so you can ask your users in context, why aren't you visiting this page? And by pairing both sort of the qualitative and quantitative information, you're able to find much more robust results. Kind of speaking to an issue more locally, recently my team at Artefact and I partnered to solve a big problem in our local community. So in Seattle, every night, 700 to 1,000 homeless youth and young adults actually don't have a place to stay that is safe. And so there's a huge problem for us, and we partnered with the City of Seattle Mayor's Office to try to find a solution. And we really wanted it to be a collaborative community experience. So what we did is we brought in service providers, we talked to homeless young adults, and we also brought in a lot of local organizations who are really interested in helping out, like Zillow and Microsoft. And we asked, how might we go about solving this problem? One really interesting statistic we found from our sort of initial secondary research was that actually 70% of homeless young adults have access to smartphones. And so we thought, maybe this is a really interesting way to deliver information to them and help them find the resources that they need. We then went and talked to a lot of homeless young adults, but what we found was that the 70% statistic was actually a little bit misleading, because a lot of homeless young adults said, I do have a cell phone and I really like using it, but a lot of times I don't have power, I don't have a place to charge it, or I might run out of data. And sometimes my phone gets stolen, sometimes I lose it, and sometimes when they sweep my encampment, they take away all of my things, so I don't have my cell phone anymore. So we realized that delivering information just over cell phone wasn't a way that would effectively allow us to communicate and give young adults the information they needed. So in the final designs that we proposed, we made sure that it was multi-platform. We allowed young adults to set goals and find resources that were available to them on desktop computers. A lot of the young adults we spoke to actually said they did have consistent internet access at public libraries and their schools. So we made sure to make our solution that was not just mobile-oriented. I think something else that we learned was from talking with service providers like Emily at Street Youth Ministries. And she said, you can provide young adults with all the information you want to, but if at the end of the day, they don't have the self-belief or the self-worth to stick with the program, it won't work for them. And the key to really helping young adults maintain and establish these relationships and work their way out of homelessness is to build strong relationships with adults who can provide support and also serve as role models. So in our final proposal to the city, we made sure to integrate the tool that we created with existing case management and service providers, ensuring that they would be able to establish that strong relationship and work towards their plan out of moving outside of homelessness. So we saw here, we were able to combine the use of qualitative data and quantitative data to really help fine-tune and add nuance to our design solution. If we had only considered one in isolation, our results would not have been as effective. The second lesson that I think we want to learn from sort of online dating is to engage your users endlessly as much as possible. I think if you go to a bar any day, you might see groups of friends Tindering together and cackling. So, I think online dating has made user research sort of a fun activity for all of us. We get to, there's so many options. I'm really in a sense of control, and people have really responded to that. There's also a show 2 years ago called The Singles Project. This showed on Bravo. And what the show did was is a reality TV show where people would go on dates, but the daters would actually submit live questions to the audience, like, hey, should I go on a second date with this person? And the viewers actually got a chance to respond to these polls, and the daters would take their responses into account when making their dating decisions. So I think a question that arises from here is, how might we really take inspiration from online dating and how they engage their users in how we engage users in the research and design process? I'm a Capital One customer, and so whenever I tip more than 20%, Capital One actually sends me an email that says, hey, Felix, you tipped more than 20%. Which I think more interesting than this, though, is actually right here at the bottom, what they actually do is ask, was this alert helpful? And for me, what's really nice about that is they get feedback on the product interaction right in context. Hopefully, if I say nope 5 times, then they will learn, hey, Felix doesn't want this alert, or maybe we should increase the threshold. Maybe if he gives a 100% tip, then we'll notify him that something's up. But the product team is able to immediately take action. I also like that because it is contextual, I remember exactly how I feel. It's not a survey 3 weeks later. It's not like, oh, what was the survey they sent me? I know immediately right now, oh, this was not very helpful for me, so I can tell them, and that increases the validity of the feedback. I know a lot of us are really familiar with co-design and co-creation tools, and I think as using pictures to stimulate discussions with stakeholders and really gain that empathy. How does this really begin to shift, though, as we design for really complex systems, when we design for virtual reality? And also, if you think of a typical geolocation app now, it's really complicated. Even for a traveling app, you might have to look up information in the United States. You fly on a plane where you no longer have internet access, and then you might land in Thailand, where the cultural context is completely different. How do we help prototype and people learn about such widely varying areas? At Artefact, we spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we've actually created a prototyping tool called Storyboard VR. And what Storyboard VR allows people to do is, if you can put on a head-mounted display, and it allows designers or even just any novice user to quickly select elements that they want to add to the virtual environment. They can walk through the environment and really see and actually place and add and manipulate their environment. You can see how in the very near future, this might be a research method as well, where instead of just asking patients how they feel about discussing medications with their doctors, they can actually interact with an avatar of a doctor and see how they respond. Additionally, say you're interested in designing the space of a waiting room, instead of just asking them to imagine what a waiting room should be like, you can actually have them digitally walk through a waiting room and say, hey, if I'm ill, I think I'd be tired, so I might need a chair here. I'm actually gonna pull out a chair and show the designers where I want the chair. So that way the designers have immediate action and inspiration from their users. So we've seen that it's increasingly important as we design for virtual and really immersive experiences to gather feedback at the point of action and really give the user as much control as possible. The third lesson that I think we should draw from online dating is that it's really important to generate measurable positive outcomes. If you think of any sort of online dating advertisement, it usually goes something like this. Oh, I was so lonely, and then I joined eHarmony, and now I'm so happy. Marketing firms are really catching up on this as well, and so now they really try to advertise, hey, which sites lead to longer lasting relationships? So as a field within design research, I think we should ask ourselves, how might we quantify the value that we bring and then advertise it so that way people understand the value of our work and we can continue to practice? At Artefact, I think we think really deeply about how we can do the best work for our clients. And so 2 things we measure ourselves on are, was this work impactful for our client? And did our client enjoy working with us? And so we've actually recently instituted using the Net Promoter Score with all of our clients. So we asked all of our clients, how likely is it that you would recommend Artefact to a friend or colleague? And this does 2 things. First, it allows the user or the client to immediately give feedback to us, so that way we can improve our practice if there are things that are going wrong. Secondly, if we are able to say, hey, 95% of our clients enjoyed working with us, when we did design research methods, whenever we approach new clients, this helps to establish their trust and their sort of our credibility immediately, and allows us to practice the design research methods that we want to. If you think about also capturing outcomes within any organization, it's important to think about the metrics that are important to you. So in the Obama campaign in '08, they were really interested in raising money. And the way they did this was having email signups. And so on their website, they tried to get as many emails as possible, and then they would send emails soliciting donations. And the web team for this was really interested in seeing what combination of image as well as button would actually get the most people to sign up on email. They originally theorized that an Uncle Sam video and sign up would lead to the increased sign up rates. After running a lot of A/B tests, though, they tested multiple variations of the designs and the buttons, and they found that they were completely wrong. So instead of a video, a static image was actually the most effective, and a text button that said learn more actually led to a 40% increase in emails. So just this one, these two changes actually led to $60 million in increased donations that the Obama campaign received. So as you were able to see here, they were able to quickly identify relevant metrics that they wanted to test again, and really hey, we raised $60 million extra. Let's continue to use this method and advocate for it within the design community. So I think, definitely there's a lot of potential as we continue to grow design research as a field, but as we've heard today, there are lots of important things to be mindful of too, including diversity and inclusion. Within online dating, harassment is obviously still a huge issue, so companies and users really need to be mindful. And then within design research, I think it's really important to continue to think about who we can interview and making sure we're getting empathy with the right people. It's not helpful enough just to talk to my coworkers or my coworkers' friends. I think also, considering those things, if we spend our time solving the right problems, I think, sure, increasing the click-through rate of Justin Bieber's website might be entertaining, but maybe it would be a better use of our time to think about ways we can increase the click-through rate to a nonprofit that helps people who need education. So I think as designers, we're all really mindful about how we can create that impact, and I encourage all of us to continue to do so. But if we continue to take action at first data, engage our users endlessly, and really try to measure the value and sell and advocate for ourselves, I believe that eventually we will lead to greater love, both in terms of products we create, as well as within relationships. Thank you.